Hello and welcome back to the Yarn Chicken podcast. Today is the 5th episode, I think, of the knitting podcast, and I don't have any finished objects. I've been moving. If you watched any of my previous videos, this is a new location and everything is quite chaotic at the moment, so I don't have any finished objects. I do, however, have a few works in progress, and I have 2 purchases. That is technically one occasion, but 2 items that I bought. Okay, maybe I should clip this on. Does this look absolutely ridiculous? Maybe. Anyway, I do have 2 things that I finished since last podcast update, and that is 2 modifications. I modified my camisole number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I added 7-ish centimeters on the bottom to make it longer, and I shortened the straps by quite a bit because, surprise surprise, the silk, as everyone said did grow quite a lot. So I had to shorten that by a considerable amount. And then I also modified my Gemma polo that I finished later in the summer because the sleeves, the cuffs were too tight. I had bound off with a way too tight cast off, and I modified that. I added some length on the half twisted rib, and I then bound off with a bit of a stretchier cast off. I also, what did I do? Oh yeah, I tightened up the finishing on the collar, so where I had joined the 2 double knitted sides together, I had been a bit too loose because I was afraid that it would pucker if I tightened the strand or the string that I was working with too much, and it ended up being too loose instead and looked bumpy and weird, and I made that disappear. So that was on the very beginning of the entire round of the collar. So I had to take a small knitting needle and sort of pull out the strand of yarn, and then I went in with a tiny hook, a tiny crochet hook, and just pulled it between the double knitted sides and into the fabric itself. So the edge is now a lot smoother, but that is the only thing that I actually finished in the last few weeks because everything is chaotic when you move. So as for current works in progress, I did do some more work, did some more work on my IVF rainbow blanket. So because I was considering either mirroring the colours or just continuing on with a gradient, and as you can see, I am now repeating the greens, and I think I will add at least the dark blue as well. Then I'll probably block it to see how far I've come, how big this is, because this will be a baby blanket for 2 friends who are starting IVF, and I wanted something that is washable. So this is all sock yarn in a mix of wool and nylon, so 80% wool and 20% nylon. So it's washable, it won't need too much blocking probably, but I still want it to be a decent size, even if they just pull it out of the washing machine and put it in the baby's crib, if they don't want to faff around with blocking, because neither of them are knitters, so I can't expect them to baby the baby blankets. So I will see how far I've come after the blue, the dark blue and a white border and blocking, and then my plan is to pick up stitches all around the sides with the white and knit a border for maybe 6 rows on each side to give it a bit of more structure on the sides, because currently the colourful yarn is thinner than the thick white yarn. So this it wasn't an option to keep the sides unfinished or unfaffed with. So I'll do that. And one consideration I have to keep in mind is that I don't know how much more of the white yarn I actually have, because this was supposed to be a scrap project and I didn't think that I would use up an entire ball of the white yarn because it's such a small percentage of the total project, because it's in between every, I think it's, yeah, so 12 rows in the colour and then 4 rows with the white, but it adds up, so I think I'll have to look a bit more carefully at that. So far I've made a few mistakes in the last 2, I think, 2 or 3 colour repeats. So in the dark green I accidentally knit one of the rows purlwise or knitwise, depending on which direction you look from, and that I just attribute solely to moving nerves, because I've knit the exact same pattern for a few times, so it's just a silly thing for me to make that mistake. But I am not ripping it out and redoing it because it is not noticeable enough, and I think they will be very happy either way. So that is my progress on the IVF blanket. This is now becoming so large that I can't really keep it in my purse, so this is an at-home project, and seeing as I've had 2 homes for the last few weeks and everything, or 3 homes because my partner's home as well, I haven't had a lot of time, or I haven't made a lot of time to knit on this, but I think that is changing. I've already picked out the dark blue yarn because these are all sock scraps from myself or from my aunt or my great aunt, who also knit a lot of socks, and I'm very happy to incorporate them in one baby blanket to give away to the next generation. So I think that will be a very lovely thing, and if they don't love it, then it has been a fun thing to knit for them. Next up, I want to show you an obsession that I had before I even started this channel. I had the idea that I wanted to knit myself a purse, and that I did experiment with a bit, and then I just sort of forgot that whole idea. And then I was sat at home in the old apartment one evening and I thought, I'm not going to do anything with this yellow sock yarn or this yellow mohair, because I don't think that I love mohair for myself or for against my skin. So what can I do with it? I'll try and knit a purse. I'm going to be dropping stitches. And I began with just casting on a rectangle and I knit that back and forth, and then I picked up stitches from the wrong side to make a bit of a border. Hang on, these stitches are testing me. So I knit the bottom and I picked up stitches on the wrong side to make a bit of a bump to keep the structure a bit more defined. And then I've just been working a stockinette stitch, and then at random intervals I've added a purl, a twisted stitch and a purl, so a twisted knit stitch and another purl, and then increasing the amount of twisted stitches and purl rows. So the idea is to make it a gradient effect with the pearl and the columns of twisted stitches. And as you can see, I'm working it on DPNs. These are 2.5mm in size, and this is really making me consider buying cabled 2.5mm needles. So far I've always been happy with the DPNs, but now I'm a bit curious to try knitting socks on interchangeable needles with magic loop. I don't like magic loop in general, but I think there is a point to be made for knitting socks, I think, with magic loop on this small of a needle, because I think it can be easier to keep an even tension if you have a longer stretch of stitches to work with at once. Because with my DPNs now, I have 4 different spots where I have to be mindful of the floats not being too snug or too loose, and with a magic loop situation, I would only have 2, and that would be at the very edges of the foot, because now I have 1 at the top of the foot, 2 at the sides, and 1 at the very bottom, and the top, I'm afraid, would be quite visible if I don't sort out my tension in colourwork socks. And I have been so inspired by Charlotte Stone from Stone Knits. All of her colourwork socks, and I mean every single one of them, are just absolutely gorgeous, and I want to knit all of them. I want to have an entire sock drawer full of beautiful colourwork socks that are silly and a bit outrageous and cute and works of art, and I don't have the skill yet, and I want to have the skill. So that is, and she knits with a magic loop on metal needles actually, which I don't know if I love, but who am I to argue with her genius? Maybe I'll just look into it and try. So this is something that I have occupied myself with in the last few weeks, and I do have one of those spring clasps that I will be sewing onto this if and when I ever finish the purse. And I don't know if I will want to use it as a purse or a makeup bag, or if I want to keep it for other things. Maybe I'll just end up using this as a basket for decorative stuff, but it has been a good thing to keep my fingers working and occupied, and this is still a quite small project, and it doesn't require a pattern either. I don't have to keep a pattern with me, which I think is a very good thing for the current state of mind that I'm in. So I am listening to myself. I'm ignoring what previous Elizabeth said that she wanted to do. She had grand plans for the month of September, and she was delusional. And now September Elizabeth is here to tell her, God, is this very obnoxious, me talking about myself in third person? Anyway, I need to tell myself and be kind to myself that the plans that I had are not realistic at the moment. So this is what I have been able to handle. And these are both drops yarn. This is the Fable. No, I don't know if it's the Fable, but it's one of their sock yarns, and this is the colorway Dandelion. I used some of this in the baby blanket as well, but since this is the thicker yarn that the white is as well, I didn't love how that changed the texture, so I did then change to 2 other thinner sock yarns for the rest of the repeat for the yellow, which I think was a good call. And this is the Drops Mohair something, and this feels a bit plasticky and a bit gross, so I'm happy that I don't wear this next to my skin or on my skin, because this would make me freak out in a very short time. So that's my second work in progress. My third work in progress that I'm nearly finished with, and I'm acting a bit precious about this project because it's such an intuitive knit for me. I've knit socks like this since I was in high school, and so this is a very easy knit for me. So I'm keeping it as oh, I want to have an easy project that I can just take on the go, instead of just finishing it and casting on something new and having a finished pair of socks. Anyway, it's a brain thing. I'm not quite convinced that it's a logic thing. It's just I'm in my feelings about it. So this is a pair of giant socks for my father. He wears a size 46 European, which is a size humongous in US in freedom units. And that joke does not fly very well anymore, does it? Anyway, so this is just a massive sock. When we were in Norway a few weeks ago now, it feels like a lifetime ago, before we moved, we were in Norway, and I bought a lot of yarn. This is the Sandnes Garn alpaca, meant for a bit of a thicker needle. So it's 80% alpaca and 20% nylon, instead of your standard sock yarn that is not as soft at all. And I'm knitting this because I feel like my father is quite overdue for a new pair of knitted socks. He did get a pair of socks knitted by me years and years ago. I think it must have been when I was still in uni, so 2017 or something. And every time I go home and I see him wearing the socks that I knit for him, I just get a very lovey feeling, and I want to make him another pair that can get him through the coldest months, because the yarn that I used for the other socks is a lot thinner, and this is very thick and luxurious, and they have stone floors at home, and I would love to give him a pair of socks that are warm enough. Also, the socks that I made last time, I thought the heel flap looked too long and looked odd when I did the standard measurements or the standard recipe that I used for my other socks, which is that I knit as many rows as stitches. So I take half of the stitches for the entire round, and I knit the heel flap for the same number of rows as stitches. So it's not quite a square, because a knit stitch is not as wide as it is tall, so it's a bit of a weird shape for me. But when I look at the socks that I made where I shortened the heel, they don't sit right. So this is maybe too long, but I think with the third iteration of sock for my father, I will find the perfect length, because I was too short. This is probably too long, and then the next pair will be long enough, the Goldilocks pair of socks. And I used 3 shades of the yarn, 3 shades of blue, and they had this gorgeous patchworky sock look, and they will look great in his Birkenstock that he wears indoors, because stone floors are cold and these will look great. So I finished one. These stitch markers are to represent the time it took me, and it was very good, and I weighed my yarn to make sure that I used half of it for the first sock. So in theory I should have enough for the second sock, but I don't know. So this is, hang on, this is a rogue needle. This is how far I've come on the second. So I am just about to switch colours to for the toe part of the sock, and I should just get these finished because what am I doing? This is not a project that I want to linger on. I want to finish it and have it ready for Christmas for my father. I'm building a pile over here. So one last whip. This is the Cascade top by Odd Rose, and this is a top that I'm knitting for my mother because her birthday is coming up in October and I want to knit her a camisole. This will not be appropriate for the weather in Sweden in October, but she saw my camisole number 4 over the summer and she said that she really liked the thought of a knit camisole, but I don't think that she would like the cami with the very thin straps, and I think that she would like a bit more embellishment, so I did a Ravelry deep dive and I found the Cascade top and I have begun. I did knit a swatch, so it's is it a 3x1 rib with 1 column of twisted stitches, twisted knits, and it gives a very beautiful texture. I'm a bit worried that it might be a bit too see-through in this colorway, but then again it will be sat on the skin, so it's not going to be as see-through as it is when I look through it at a lamp. So I did knit the gauge swatch to figure out my gauge, and I hit gauge on a 3.0 at 3mm needle, and I have started. This is a very ambitious project. I do not know if I'll make it on time. My plan for this is to take it on my upcoming trip. I have a short trip to my family in Germany coming up, and I will take this, and then again the week after that I am going on a long train ride because I have some training in another city that I have to do over the course of 2 days. There will be a lot of opportunity to knit, so I think with those 3 days, 4 days, I can probably do a lot of damage on this top. I think it's going to be, I hope it's going to be beautiful. I am struggling a bit with the whole a cable that spans over 5 stitches situation, where I have to take one of the stitches, knit it, and then do the cabling, because it's too big of a jump to go over 5 stitches, so I knit one of them and then, anyway, I'm not very used to cables, period, and this is in a twisted stitch as well, so this is a challenge, but I think it will be worth it. I'm knitting it in the Sandnes Garn Tynn Lene, and I chose this greyish, almost steel blue grey colour because my mother wears a lot of blue and green, and she has a lighter blue for in the same yarn for a summer long sleeved top, so I didn't want to use that very bright, almost Klein blue for this as well because that would be a bit too repetitive. Now I'm second guessing myself if this is too dull a colour for her, but I will prevail a bit longer at least. I have the entire quantity that I need for the camisole in her size in this yarn, and I will see if it ends up growing on me, if I think this will look good in the end or not. But yeah, that is a very exciting work in progress, or will be exciting once I get some more work done on it. Okay, so on to the last portion of the video, which is recent purchases. I didn't think that I would need to buy anything, and I didn't need to buy anything. None of this is a need, it's a want, and it's a thing that I can afford to do with my adult money, even though we just spent so much money on this move and this apartment. This is still within the budget, it's fine. I have also decided to stop the videos what I spend on my knitting hobby each month, because I don't think that they are worth the time currently, because not a lot of people watch them at all, and I don't think it's the best way to spend my time making videos that no one watches and messes up the content that is being pushed out to people who are interested in knitting. So I think the knitting spending expenses will be better suited in the purchases part of these podcast videos for now. If I start missing the videos too much, or if there is a demand for them later on, I will bring them back, but for now I think I'll just stick to the podcast episodes. As I was saying, I didn't think that I would buy any more yarn for the entire autumn, winter, and this is just this, what can I say? I really like the alpaca sock yarn that I had for my father, and I want soft socks for myself. I want Christmas socks that are soft. So I bought the Arwetta yarn from Filcolana, and I got it in this red, and I got it in a white and off-white, and I will be knitting a pair of Christmas socks. I don't have the white with me, but just imagine an off-white, cream white, and you'll know the colour that I'm talking about. And it's very soft. I think it would be lovely. I've knit a swatch and or a shaft of one of the socks to try and figure out colour, dominance, and to block it to see if the gauge is still right after washing it, because if the yarn shrinks even a bit, I will be in trouble because the gauge is quite tight as it is. So I don't have that with me, otherwise I would have shown it in my whips. And I don't have the white with me, or I probably do, it's probably somewhere around here, but who can tell when everything is just chaotic in the move. But I bought these two balls of yarn for my own selfish reasons. I wanted Christmas socks and I wanted them to be soft, so I bought this. And then we were walking around town in Stockholm a few weeks ago, and I saw there is a kilometre of flea markets that pops up in different places, and one of them was selling yarn for bargain prices because she had too much yarn and she wanted to get rid of it. And I bought this Drops Fabel sock yarn in a loud pink colour. This is not for me, this is for my nephew, whose favourite colour is pink, and I want to knit him a pair of pink socks for Christmas. And this is 75% wool and 25% polyamide. So this is a standard wool or sock yarn that I have knit before. Some of the yarns in the baby blanket are also Drops Fable. I think it's a bit too thin for my liking, but since my nephew is 4, he will not need very chunky yarn to be thick enough for his foot in a pair of wellies. So Drops Fable it is. And this was €1. She sold yarn balls, whole balls for €1 each, and she had a lot of them, so she made a lot of money, I think. But or made back some of the money that she had already spent. And then I found this absolutely ridiculous green silk mohair that is so loud and is very soft. It's a lot better than the drops one that I don't know what the fiber content in is now off the top of my head. But this is a silk mohair mix from Sandnes Garn, and it's very, as I said, very soft. It doesn't have that icky feeling. And my intention was to knit a lampshade cover for my office because I work in the public sector and the offices are not very personal there, and I want the kids that come there to feel welcome and to see some of my personality and to have something fun to look at if we're talking about something difficult. And I found a free pattern for the lampshade. It's a round lampshade, and then I started knitting while I was doing some obligatory training because I'm at a new job, and I severely overestimated the amount of increases that I would have to do. So this used to be this much longer, and I realized that I had added about 100 stitches or 120 stitches too many in each round, and I was getting frustrated. Why is this taking so long? Why am I not getting anywhere? Is this pattern just not for me? And then I came to a point where I could actually put the yarn or the work in progress over the lampshade, and I saw that it was just bunching and gathering in all the wrong ways. I couldn't save it. I was briefly considering felting it to try and make it work, but that was just my sunk cost fallacy kicking in because it was not salvageable. So now I've ripped back a lot of hours of work, and I will rebuild. I will remake this because I think it's going to be a fun project, or I think I will love having it finished. I just don't think that I love ripping it out because the mohair is just sticking to itself like nobody's business, and it's not a happy thing. But that is it for my purchases. I bought 2 balls of sock yarn full price, the Focolana Aweta, and I bought 2 skeins, 1 sock yarn and 1 ridiculous silk mohair for €1 each, which I thought was a good deal. And secondhand yarn is also good for the environment because someone else's failed plans or ideas not come true can still be a happy project and a fun time for me, even though this particular project was not a very fun time. But I have learned from my mistakes and I now know what I want to do, and more importantly, how many stitches I need. So thank you so much for watching today's podcast. If you liked the video, please do like it. If you want to, please consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss my future uploads. You will see updates about all of these projects, and I will also be making a project vlog on the Cascade top. So I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye. This yarn also sheds a lot. I'm full of green fibers. I feel like the Grinch. This is what I would look like if the Grinch hugged me. Not that the Grinch is a hugger.